Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Ethereum, and we're going to be looking to see what exactly happened 3 years ago that finally led to Ethereum's major move against USD and its major move against Bitcoin. So if you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. So in order to really dissect this, we need to go back in time and look to see what exactly happened. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So first, we're going to look to see on the daily time frame what was Bitcoin doing when it finally got to the top. So it got to the top on December 17th, 2017. This was the global top. We didn't necessarily know it was the global top, but that's where it ended up being. And after that point, it bled pretty consistently. It never recovered after that in the short term. Now it has recovered, right? We're back above that level, but in the short term, it did not recover and it just trended down. And in fact, we had a knee-jerk reaction that took us all the way back down to the 10K area. So that was a pretty substantial move. And you might assume, well, if Bitcoin's dropping by 50%, doesn't that mean that everything else has to drop as well? And a lot of times, coins will have knee-jerk reactions. But if Bitcoin controls the party for long enough, and every other coin just keeps bleeding and bleeding and bleeding against Bitcoin, losing valuation constantly, then at some point, whenever Bitcoin cools down, it's likely that these other coins take off. Now, you guys know I'm a big Ethereum bull, but the truth is I own a lot more Bitcoin than Ethereum. It's just managing my risk. We know that Ethereum is more volatile. We hold on to Ethereum, at least I do, because I want to see a higher return, but I pay for it with more units of risk, more units, more volatility over the macro scale. So what exactly happened? I mean, Bitcoin bled from December 17th through December 22nd before recovering slightly. What happened between December 17th and December 22nd? Well, let's go take a look. Let's go see what was Ethereum doing between December 17th and December 22nd of 2017. So here we are, December 17th. Okay, so here Ether rallied 24% against USD, while Bitcoin, during that same period of time, fell at the bottom 45%. Here it fell 30%. So there was finally a shift of people pulling out of Bitcoin in the short term, moving it back into Ethereum, and riding that wave for a little while. But then it stopped. Ethereum came back down. And you might say, well, what happened here? Ethereum came right back down to where it started, and it dropped back down about 20% for about 4 days. Well, what the hell happened? What caused that? You go back and look at Bitcoin, and, well, over those 4 days, Bitcoin rallied back up 14%. It stole the show. Yet again, when Bitcoin takes the show, everything sits and watches, for the most part, right? And then Ethereum went sideways for a while. And what was Bitcoin doing between December 25th and December 31st? December 25th through December 31st is right here. It was more or less range bound, right? It wasn't really doing a whole lot. In fact, it was more or less going down, but you could argue this is somewhat sideways movement, just around 13 to 14K. And then things changed starting January 2nd. Maybe you could even argue that things changed starting December 31st. That was the first green candle that led to more than a week of green candles straight. Several of them, 14%, 15%, 10%, just one day after another. Now, the first thing I should say is that in the grand scheme of the market cycle, we're not at the same phase that we were here, because at this point, 3 years ago, Bitcoin was up 100x from the local bottom back in 2015. We're not at that point yet. That would imply, to be at the same area, Bitcoin would likely need to be over 6 figures, and it's completely left everything in the dust for the, at least in the short term, and everyone's wondering when their alts are finally going to pump again. So, and I don't consider Ethereum an alt, but let's just use terminology that we can quickly understand what we're talking about. So we're not exactly in the same phase, right? We're not exactly in the same phase of the market cycle. We're just to the prior all-time high, and in fact we're above the prior all-time high. So we are in a slightly different phase of the market cycle. But I just want to show you guys there can come a time where Bitcoin has had the spotlight for so long that whenever it gives the slight indication that it's going to cool off, that's when altcoins can start running. Okay, that's when altcoins can start running, when it gets to an extreme overvaluation territory. And from December 31st, Ether started pumping. And if we go look at Bitcoin, what was Bitcoin doing December 31st? Well, it was actually doing okay too. But it came after a pretty strong correction, right? It did come, in fact, after a pretty strong correction. From the top, let me measure it the other way. So from the top up here down to December 31st, Bitcoin actually corrected 33%. So again, we're at a different phase of the market cycle, and I'm not saying Bitcoin is going to correct 33%. I mean, it could, right? It could, but even after a 33% correction from Bitcoin, Ether was able to go up, starting December 31st, about 100% during that same period of time. Now, if you go back even further and see what was going on when Bitcoin broke past the prior all-time high, because that might be interesting. We've talked a lot about it before, but we haven't really, gone into, say, the daily candles. Not that I'm aware. It's possible I covered it in a video, but let's go look and see what was Bitcoin doing. What was Bitcoin doing back on Q1 of 2017? So we're going to go all the way back to Q1 of 2017. We're going to get our prior all-time high, go over. So let's go back to see where Ethereum started pumping. So, it was doing well in here, of course. We know it was doing well in December and January and February. But again, you could argue that the main reason it was doing well was because, well, Bitcoin was trending up during this time, right? I mean, it was trending up to the top, back down, but it was more or less continuing on up, okay? And then once it finally got above the prior all-time high, it was not until February 23rd. Let's go see what happened February 23rd with Ethereum. Well, if we go to February 23rd, that's when Ethereum started moving. That's what caused it to start moving on February 23rd. And I mean, it started slowly, right? These candles were nothing to write home about at the time on February 23rd. So let's take some measure moves here. So we had, like, say, a candle that was a few percent. That was actually down, so we'll remove that one. But a lot of these candles were, up a couple percent, down a few percent, stuff like that. And it finally ended up taking off in March, and it came back down, and then it continued the run into late March. Okay, so if we go back and look to see, well, what was Bitcoin doing during March? Okay, Bitcoin went above the prior all-time high, and it went above it by approximately 13%. It came back down, came back up during this period of time. Okay, so during that period, Ethereum was making a major move, right? That's when Ethereum made a major move against USD and against Bitcoin going into February and March. Look at February and March. So February and then March. That was when Ether was propelled to new heights, back when Bitcoin was, back when it went to the prior all-time high and went above it, cooled off a little bit, went sideways for a little bit. That's when Ethereum started making its move. And you can see that really well with the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, right? It really started making the move in January. This was the prior one. It started making the move in January. It cooled off a bit until February, and then February and March, it made that, fairly significant move. Okay, so that's what ultimately happened back in early 2017. So we covered what happened in early 2017. We had covered what happened in late 2017. So the moral of the story, as all of you already likely know, right, is Bitcoin needs to cool off. Until that happens, and I don't know when it's going to happen, I can't tell you, until that happens, Ethereum's going to bleed against Bitcoin for the most part, right? Again, you might have an hour here, an hour there, where it seems to surge, but a lot of times it seems to surge based on the anticipation that Bitcoin could be cooling off. But then if Bitcoin just quickly grabs the reins back, it just keeps bleeding, right? It keeps going down. So it'd be nice, right, if Bitcoin could just cool off. If it could cool off. And let's see, this one went about 13% above it. I want to go to the present day and see how far above it we are. Let's switch over to this one. So we're going to take a measured move from, let's go to 20K. We went up about 20%. Now we're down to around 13%, 14% or so. So pretty similar move so far. If Bitcoin cools off here, right? If Bitcoin cools off here, then we're in business, right? I think we're in business. If it doesn't, then we're essentially just kicking the can down the road until whenever it does. And if you look at the Ether Bitcoin valuation, I mean, it's come back down to the lower bound here on our theoretical reaccumulation zone, and we had several candles down to this area, right? We had this one, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is our 5th candle down to this lower part of the accumulation zone. Of course, we could go lower. We're not gonna say we can't, but we also recognize that a lot of times again, these are weekly time frames, so you have to remember that weekly candles. A lot of times the move will happen right after a pretty nasty red candle, right? A lot of times that's what ultimately takes them. You can see this is a pretty nasty red candle with a wick pretty far down, going back even further. This candle here, back in December 2017, pretty nasty candle. That was where the turnaround point was. We've seen this several times in the past, where this one didn't have as nasty of a candle, but just a slow bleed, and then we finally turn around. Bleed, and then we finally turn around. So hopefully this is informative. At the end of the day, it ultimately will depend on what Bitcoin, whenever Bitcoin decides, whenever it decides it essentially wants to chill out. And until that time happens, right, I don't think we're going to see anything major from Ethereum. This was something I was looking at. This is a 1 hour time frame, so I don't really think it means all that much, but I do want to, back over here in November, we were kind of back up at this imaginary line, and it was more or less trending sideways in November here, and then it came down and still in early December. And if you go back and look at the Ether Bitcoin valuation in November, it was going up, right? So if Bitcoin cools off a bit here, right, maybe it keeps coming up and testing the line, maybe it goes sideways for a while. If this is where we cool off, then I think Ethereum's back in business. Okay, this is the point. But I don't want anyone to get the impression that Bitcoin necessarily has to cool off quite yet. I mean, there is a lot of momentum right now. Certainly, we're not going to discredit a potential 25K Bitcoin, a potential 30K Bitcoin. When you get into these bubbles, it's really hard. I mean, it's impossible to really know exactly where the top is. It's so hard to know. And then once it crashes, once things correct and come back down, you look back and it's like, it seems so obvious. But when you're in the middle of it, it's so hard to know. Sometimes you just kind of have to buckle in and hope it plays out the way we want. So, we're back down, and for Ethereum, we're back down all the way over here. I just want to give people an update on Ethereum, just kind of share my thoughts on it right now. Over the next few weeks, hopefully we'll see a move of Ethereum back out against Bitcoin. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. And remember, we also do have the premium list. You can find the holiday sale, so make sure you sign up before the prices go back up. You get access to weekly reports, weekly videos, a risk dashboard, a dynamic DCA selling dashboard, a premium Telegram alerts channel, and a chat room. So you get access to a whole lot of stuff and trading view indicators. So I also added a link in the description in case you want to pay with crypto. I had a couple people ask if you could pay with crypto for the Black Friday deal, so I went ahead and created that if you guys want to join paying with crypto. At the very least, subscribe to the channel. We'll follow these steps every step of the way, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.